Hi, this is Kelsey and this is Essentially Booked. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. And today we are going to talk about Q2 book releases. So this will be April, May, and June. I'm not going to go super in depth into books because you guys can go Google that yourself. It's easy. I'm going to briefly explain like why I'm excited by something. I'll try to do them in pub date order. But there's quite a few books. I actually don't know the number yet because I'm just gonna work through some lists based on like what I have on hold at the library, my NetGalley books, and then just books from other lists. So here we go. We'll start with April, and it's gonna be, I think, a pretty good publishing year. Like honestly, there's so many books that I am very, very excited for that are coming out here soon. Also, I will be filming this like throughout my day today because of work, and I'm just kind of going to film in pockets of time that I have. Starting with April, the very first book, and this is probably one of my more anticipated releases, is Leaf Anger has a new book out and it's called I Cheerfully Refuse. This is out on April 2nd. So these first three books come out on the 2nd. And this is, he wrote Peace Like a River, and if you have not read that book, it is so, so good. It sold over 1 million copies, which I didn't know. So this is a tale of a bereaved and pursued musician embarking under sail on a sentient Lake Superior in search of his departed, deeply beloved book-selling wife. And I think this is going to have a bit of like a Gulliver's Travel-esque vibe. But why I'm very excited about this one is it is set on Lake Superior, and if you know anything about me, I'm obsessed with Lake Superior. The North Shore of Minnesota is my happy place. And also it is Leaf Anger. He is such a good writer. I'm just very, very excited for this. So this comes out on April 2nd. And then The Sicilian Inheritance by Jo Piazza. I have this on NetGalley. I talked about possibly reading it in a NetGalley reading blog and I never did. This, I think, is just she uses her own history to write this story, but this is about a long-awaited trip to Sicily, a disputed inheritance, and a family secret that some will kill to protect. I did start it and it has really held my attention. On April 2nd as well, A Short Walk Through a Wide World by Douglas Westerbeek. And this one was like promoted to me on NetGalley, but then I was reading about it on some like Book Riot stuff, some other things. And it was blurbed as a comparison to the Invisible Life of Addie LaRue meets Life of Pi. Loved both of those books. So like, okay. But I think this might be getting like in the fantasy realm. Maybe it's more magical realism, but I think it is getting good early review. And it's also an Avid Reader Press pubbed book, which is under Simon & Schuster. And I tend to really like Avid Press books. So I am possibly, since I'm going on a trip this week, this video will come out when I get back, but I might actually start this one or I Cheerfully Refuse. I'm undecided yet which one I will start. I need to read a NetGalley book on this trip. Now we're on to April 9th, 3 books. The first one is The Hemlock Queen by Hannah Whitten, and I am a stan for anything she writes. This is the second book in the Sainted Kings series, I think. I think that's the name of the series. This is the second book and it's an epic fantasy. There's kind of like a trio going on right now, like a love triangle. That's the word, not like a trio that I know of. But I like this fantasy series. I love her writing. She's very atmospheric and just such a great writer, but it kind of deals with like religious morality, and it's a darker Catholic church with like more magic is kind of what the religious and magical system is set up with. And there's poisons and stuff. It's a darker fantasy and I really, really love it. She's just brilliant. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out. I actually will need to read a review before I like go back, or a summary of the first book before I go back into it, because I just need the refresh. I read this first book last March, so a year ago. All right, I'm just gonna go through the ones that I have on NetGalley right now because I don't think it's gonna be, this will be a very long video, and then I'll go back and scroll through my library holds to see what else I've put on hold from this list that I've kind of marked down on NetGalley. So The French Ingredient, Making Life in Paris One Lesson at a Time, a memoir by Jane Birch, comes out April 9th as well. And this has everything I love: Paris, food writing that is a memoir. It intrigued me. And then the last one coming out on April 9th is I've Got My Mind Set on Brew, and it is a romance set in a craft brewing environment. Sign me up. Then on April 16th is The Evolution of Annabelle Craig by Lisa Grunwald. And I loved her debut novel. Her debut novel was, gosh, I don't even remember. Her first book was like, it took place in Grand Central Station during Manhattan Henge, where the sun lines up perfectly, and it was like this magical realism romance. It kind of reminded me of The Time Traveler's Wife, but I just adored the story. So this one is a young Southern woman sets out on a journey of self-discovery as the infamous 1925 Scopes trial tests her faith in her marriage in this moving novel. Oh, she wrote Time After Time too, which I didn't Time After Time is what it was called. And she also wrote The Irresistible Henry House. I guess I haven't read that. But there's something about her writing and her storytelling that just really does it for me. So I'm very excited for this. And then on April 23rd, one of my all-time favorite food writers is Ruth Reichl, and her newest book, The Paris Novel, comes out. And this is fiction. So I haven't read her fiction work. I've only read her nonfiction, but I do own her other fiction book. It's called Delicious. So this is a heartfelt adventure through the food, art, and fashion scene of 1980s Paris. So I'll love it. I love how she writes. And then the final April release, actually there's 2 April releases we need to talk about, but the final one is Real Americans by Rachel Khong. And she wrote Goodbye Vitamin. I was listening to Annie B. Jones on From the Front Porch, and she was talking about this book. And she compared this to how for Ya Jessie, she has Transcendent Kingdom, and that would have been Goodbye Vitamin. And this is her version of like Homegoing, where it's kind of a big saga over time. And I gave this 4.5 stars. I love this book. And it is about a mother, a daughter, and a son, and the choices they make throughout their life, and like messy families, family saga. It's really beautifully done. I really, really enjoyed this. So if you're a fan of like family sagas and like messy families, I think you would really like this. It just really did it for me, and I highly recommend. And then I have a really good friend who works for an indie bookstore, and so she gets ARCs. And so she was passing this around at Girls Weekend, and I didn't claim it in time. My friend Sarah did. So then Sarah was done and brought it to me last weekend. But Funny Story by Emily Henry comes out at the end of April. I think it's April 23rd. Comes out April 23rd. I read this in a day. Very typical Emily Henry, but I did love it. I gave it like 3.75 4-ish stars. My favorites are Beach Read and People We Meet on Vacation. I would probably put this at the same level as like Happy Place. Okay, so these two people are broken up with by their respective significant others, who in turn get engaged. And so they decide to live together because it's just convenient for the situation. And then in typical Emily Henry fashion, a romance ensues. I did really enjoy this, so definitely recommend it if you are interested in her newest release. All right, and then the next book I have pegged here on NetGalley is One Last Shot by Betty Kayut. And this is just a romance. It is from the creator of a viral TikTok account, Betty's Book List, a debut romance about a supermodel and a photographer with a past marriage pact who meet again 10 years later on a photo shoot in Italy. I don't know how I feel about TikTokers becoming authors, but I know nothing about this girl, so I'll be able to enter it quite blindly. That's out on May 7th. And then also on May 7th is Skin and Bones by Renee Watson, and she is kind of an auto-read author for me. This is a soulful and lyrical novel exploring sisterhood, motherhood, faith, love, and ultimately what gets passed down from one generation to the next. And then Liquid, Fragile, Perishable comes out on the 7th as well by Carolyn Kubler. And this one is told through interlocking narratives. This poignant debut captures a year in the life of a small Vermont town. That will do it for me. This book is not sleepy. It moves from steamy to heartbreaking. The novel handles themes such as poverty, first love, drug abuse, unplanned pregnancy, and lust with refreshing nuance. So I think it follows 3 families over like the course of a year. That tends to really work for me. We are gonna move on to May 14th, and there are 3 books that published. So Last House by Jessica Shattuck. This was a read now on NetGalley that I grabbed. She is the author of The Woman in the Castle, and this comes a sweeping story of a nation on the rise and one family's deeply complicated relationship to the resource that built their fortune and fueled their greatest tragedy. Perfect for fans of The Dutch House, Anne Patchett, and The Great Circle. So I think it's about like oil, big oil. And then this book coming out next, Rednecks by Taylor Brown. I think it would pair really well as a like read with Liquid, Fragile, Perishable. And this one is a historical drama based on the Battle of Blair Mountain, putting a multi-ethnic army of 10,000 coal miners against mine owners, state militia, and the United States government in the largest labor uprising in American history. Honestly, the last 2 books that I talked about would probably fit really well together. So those, I might do a vlog of like reading those 3. That would be really cool if I actually could get that to happen. This is also a blurb by Amy Jo Burns, who wrote Mercury. I love her. Okay, and then the final one on May 14th is Every Time We Say Goodbye by Natalie Jenner, and she's a historical fiction writer that I have just had a lot of success with. She wrote The Bloomsbury Girls and the Jane Austen Society. So her books are like mostly about art and storytelling, and kind of, they're on the quieter side, I would say. This is about a girl, grief and memory of confronting the past and facing the future. I don't know. I think it takes place in Italy. It's just Natalie Jenner. And then on the 21st of May is Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel, and she wrote Kakai. Loved that. So this is just like an auto read for me. I will definitely be getting to this. This is going to be about Ganga, the goddess of the river, and her doomed mortal son. And then my final May release is All's Fair in Love and War by Virginia Heath. Virginia, good Lord. And this is the first installment of a new Regency series, love historical romance. She is, I think, a nanny, a governess who believes in cultivating joy with her charges, clashes with the child's uncle who hired her, only to fall in love. Those are my May releases. Oh goodness, I've got a lot of June releases to come up. And then I still have a list in my library. There really are like so many good releases coming out in the summer. So I am super excited for the reading I have in store for me for the next few months. Between like what I have on NetGalley, my library books, and then my TBR cart, I'm set for quite a while. So the first release I have is on June 4th. So June 4th is our first release date. It's Tuesday. Enlightenment by Sarah Perry. She wrote The Essex Serpent, and that's all I know about this. I think this one deals with astronomy. She kind of writes, I think, like historical fantasy, so that works for me. And then Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan comes out on June 4th, and this is just an author that tends to work for me. I loved her last book. I have not read Nora Goes Off Script. This one will get probably a lot of hype this summer, I'm just guessing. We're gonna move on to June 11th. Peter Swanson has A Talent for Murder coming out. He has worked for me in the past, so I'm very excited about this one. And then Catherine Center's newest book, The Rom-Commers, is coming out. And I know a few people who've already read advanced copies of this and have really loved it, so I'm very excited. I have not read Hello Stranger, although I do have it, which was her last release, and I know it was very disappointing. So this same person that gave me like raving reviews about this did not love Hello Stranger, but I do tend to trust her. So I think this is kind of like a screenwriter rom-com dynamic here going on, maybe a little bit of romantic comedy vibes, which I adored that book. So pretty pumped about that one. And then on the 18th, I've got two more releases, and these are two releases that I think will get a lot of like attention. So Sandwich by Catherine Newman. She wrote We All Want Impossible Things. And this time, this book is a hilarious story of a family summer vacation full of secrets, lunch, and learning to let go. The Nature of Disappearing by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. She wrote The Silent Woods, which I adored the last time I read it. This is a wilderness guide must team up with the man who ruined her life years ago when the friend who introduced them goes missing. She writes very compelling, like stressful books where you care deeply about the characters and you want like what is best for them despite what she's trying to make you think is happening. And I don't know if you haven't read The Silent Woods, you guys, it's such a good book. And then on the 25th, I have three books that I got approved for on NetGalley. So The Mistress Experience by Scarlett Peckham. This is the third book in the like Society of Sirens series. These are historical romances, but these are very spicy, very feminist, free love vibes. So this is not like your typical historical romance, but it is very great. I really love her writing. The first book I've actually been saving for a vlog I'm hoping to do. So I haven't read the first book in the series, but the second book had like good bisexuality rep, and I don't really know much about this one, but I'm very excited about it. Also, the covers on these for like bodice ripping, it like almost plays into the stereotype, but in its own beautiful way. I love the covers. And then this book, I've been seeing a lot of murmur about this author, but I have never read her books. And so I love quiet character-driven novels, and I think this is what this will be. This is called Bear by Julia Phillips. And this is about two sisters whose lives are upended by an unexpected visitor, a tale of family obsession and a mysterious creature in the woods. And then the final book I have for June is Rules for Second Chances by Maggie North. I have read other books by Maggie North and I really, really liked her. Can love truly happen twice with the same person is the premise of this, and the cover is just really gorgeous. Those are my books I'm excited for. And then we're gonna talk about a few more that are coming out that I didn't get approved on NetGalley, have on hold at the library. Okay, and the way this is gonna work is I'm just gonna be searching by month. I don't have pub dates just with how the setup is at my library. I just don't wanna deal with it right now. Amor Towles is coming out with a book called Table for Two, and I believe this is short stories, but what I'm really excited about for this one, this comes out April 2nd, is the fact that Evelyn from Rules of Civility is gonna have a short story. That's all I know about it. The Husbands comes out April 2nd. This was also blurbed by Dog-Eared Books in a podcast, and this woman goes up, she's married, she goes up into her attic to grab something, and when she comes down, she has a new husband. And every time she goes up to the attic, she comes down to a new husband. It sounds intriguing. Leigh Bardugo does have The Familiar coming out in April. I'm gonna hold off on this one. I actually, I have it on hold, but I'm gonna push it because I just wanna see the reviews. And right now I have so many books to read that I don't want to add more to my plate. Erik Larson's newest book comes out on April 30th, The Demon of Unrest, a saga of hubris, heartbreak, and heroism at the dawn of the Civil War. He's just a really good writer. He narrative nonfiction, does a really great job with his research. I still need to read The Splendid and the Vile, which is a Book of the Month book. So I have not actually put this one on hold because I want to wait until I've read his recent book. All right, so May, I feel like there's not as many library books that I have on hold. So The Last Murder at the End of the World by Stuart Turton I have on hold. He wrote The 7.5 Lives of Evelyn Hardcastle. Why do they do this to us with titles? Because all I want to say is Evelyn Hugo, but he's just a really twisty, compelling author. So when his books are just fun to read. Oh, so then also in May, there is the newest Christina Lauren, which is Something in Paradise, I think. Of course, I'm gonna love it. I'll put that right there. They're like an auto read for me, popcorn book. All right, so now we'll go on to June, and Ashley Poston has a new book out called A Novel Love Story. I still have not read The 7-Year Slip, and I was just okay with The Dead Romantics. So I just know how beloved she is, so that's just one I'm going to read. Plus it'll be a perfect summer book. Riley Sager has his newest Middle of the Night out, and of course, again, popcorn thriller reader. I will read all of his books. Claire Lombardo, she wrote The Most Fun We Ever Had. She has a new one called Same as It Ever Was, and I will read it. I love her so much, so I have that on hold. Ali Hazelwood has Not in Love coming out. Again, auto read. The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. She wrote Long Bright River and another book that I read, and I can't think of the title. But she is just a really great writer about heavy mysteries, very smart. So definitely one that I am pumped for. I'm sure there's more that will be on my radar, but for now, I did find out that my favorite historical romance author isn't releasing a book this year. She actually got another book that inspired her. So in 2025, I'm getting 2 books by an author that I love, which is Sarah MacLean. And I will unapologetically be freaking out about it once that's released, and oh, I can't wait for 2025. But anyways, that is this quarter's books, and I will again do this in June for July, August, and September. So what is on your radar for the next season? I'm sure a lot of these are. Are there any that you're super duper excited for? Let me know in the comments, and until the next video, everybody, bye!